just last week, I went over with my interpersonal communication class how much our language matters. And oftentimes this comes up in presentations because people will say, I need to do a PowerPoint presentation. And that puts you in a frame of mind that your visual aid should be at the forefront of how your whole presentation is designed. And so today I want to talk to you how to use PowerPoint in a presentation so that it actually supports instead of overtakes your presentation. And that main idea is what's going to drive how I teach you how to do this. So first, I'm going to talk about some presentational skills. Second, I will talk about what to actually put on your slides, and then finally some picture rules. All right, so first let's talk about presentational skills. I'm literally going to model this for you. So right now, as you can see, my video of my face is not blocking the visual aid at all. And so if you were doing this where your audience was face to face, you'd want it so that your body is not in front of or blocking the view of your audience to the visual aid. And so you need to stand to the side, and you need to make sure not to face the PA, because your body, you are the presenter. What you're saying is the presentation. PowerPoint or Prezi or whatever visual aid that you're using should enhance and not take over your presentation. So you want to make sure that you're the center of focus. If you're facing your presentational aid, and this is a face-to-face situation, then you are guiding that focus onto the presentational aid instead of yourself and what you're saying. Now, when we're in this online environment, like I'm asking you to do, if you want to have this video down in the bottom square, what you can do is I use Screencast-O-Matic. You can access this online, and then you can save the video and upload it to YouTube like you are for the rest of your speeches. And it puts your little video here at the corner. And so you're still hopefully captivating your audience's attention with what your body is doing, and you're not actually a barrier between your audience and the visual aid. The next thing to remember is that you need to keep your eyes on the prize. Your eyes should be focused on your audience, and they should not be focused on the screen, because you want that focus, you want that connection to still be with your audience, between the speaker and the audience. Because we've talked about this repeatedly, and I want to hit this home again. We take a conversational perspective or orientation to public speaking. And so your speech, the purpose of it is to build and maintain a relationship, no matter which type of speech it is. And so if you aren't making eye contact with your audience, it's going to be really hard to build and maintain that relationship. So make sure that you're facing and you're making eye contact with your audience, and not reading the things off of the screen. Now that we've talked about presentational, what your body should be doing, let's talk about what you should be putting on the slides. This is very much just like everything else we've talked about. It's about making sure that you are audience-centered. You want their focus to be on you and what you're saying, and so you have to make accommodations for your audience and be audience-driven. And so one way that we do that is making sure that our slides, whether that's a screen on Prezi or whether that's PowerPoint or whether that's a poster, you always want to make sure that your slides are actually visible to people who may have low vision or who are colorblind. And so that's really what the focus of this is. So when we're talking about accessibility, we want to make sure that we only have one picture, as you see here. The reason why we do that is because if you put more than one picture, one, it distracts the audience. Two, they're taking so long to try to figure out what do you have, what all is in that, what all pictures you have, and your pictures are going to have to be really small. So it's going to be really hard for people at the back of the room or people with just a not so great computer to be able to actually see what you've got on that slide. So we want to make sure that we keep it clean, we keep it with minimal things on it. We want to make sure that we do, for the majority of things, especially text, we want to make sure that it's black text and white background, or you can reverse it if you want to be fancy. The reason why we do this is because white and black have the most contrast between them. So it'll still be accessible to someone who has poor vision, most likely someone who's at the back of the room if you're face to face, or someone who's colorblind. The next rule is a 6x6 rule. This literally means no more than 6 lines of text. So you have 6 lines here, right? And no more than 6 words per slide per slide. This keeps the amount of text really low, and so your audience stays focused on you, the speaker, and paying attention and listening to what you're saying. We do put a little bit of text on the slide so that if they drift off, they can quickly come back and know where you are in your presentation. If we put too much text on the slide, they're going to be reading it. It's going to increase the likelihood that you're reading it. If you're reading it, you're not engaging. If they're reading it, they're not paying attention to what you're saying because they're spending a lot of time reading it. Most importantly, and why this is under accessibility, if you have a whole lot of text on your screen, that text is going to have to be really small. And so people with low vision, once again, or people who are in the back of the room or who have a not great computer are going to really struggle to read what's on your slide. And if they can't read it, they're going to be straining and not paying attention to what you're saying. Finally, we have the keep it simple, silly rule. This means no animations. We want to keep these slides as streamlined as possible. And I know it may really drive you a little crazy for them to be this bland, but I cannot tell you how many times, how many speakers I've seen, how many colleagues I've seen, how many students I've seen who decide they want to be fancy and have text flying in or have text come in at the click of a button. And they get up there and they seem all prepared, and then it doesn't work how they expect it, or they forget what the next line is. And they have to click a bajillion times. This makes you have to be stuck on your computer much more, as opposed to doing gestures, because you're having to click things, as opposed to if it's face-to-face, you're going to be behind a podium at a computer instead of with engaging with your audience. So if you think that something on a visual aid is going to make it cool or fancy, chances are you should probably not do it, because it's going to become a distraction for your audience instead of enhancing your presentation. Now that we've talked about what to do with your body and what to put on your slide, we're going to talk about the pictures that you should have on here. Now, you're probably going to say that the pictures that I've had on all of these slides have been kind of bland. There's a reason, and that's reason number 4 on this slide. First, we want to make sure, and that's really the ideal that kind of drives this slide. So your pictures should enhance and not distract from your presentation. So the number 1, they don't need to be offensive. And I don't mean like make someone be offended, meaning more that your pictures are not going to get your audience fixated on the content of that picture. So if you're talking about abortion, or let's not use abortion. Let's say you are wanting to do a presentation on gun control. It may seem like a really great idea to show victims of gun violence. However, your audience is going to be so triggered by that picture that they're not going to be listening to what you're saying. Let's go back to abortion, because this is a really popular topic in college public speaking courses, and I want you to kind of be mindful of this. It's not a great idea to have a picture of an aborted baby in your presentation. It can be very persuasive, but your audience is going to be so fixated on that picture that they're going to be distracted from the important things that you have to say. So it can work both ways. It can trigger someone who's had an abortion to have an emotional reaction that distracts them, or someone who's really opposed to abortion. It can trigger them so that they're not paying attention to what you're saying. And so it kind of devalues what you're saying. So don't do that. You want your pictures to be of good quality, meaning they're easy to see. This goes back to accessibility. They're easy for your audience to make out what they are. They're not having to strain their eyes. They're not having to spend a lot of cognitive effort trying to figure out what you have on your slide. I've already talked about one per slide. I just want to reiterate that again. One per slide. And if it's a graph, meaning you're showing data, or a map, make that the entire slide. Don't have text on it. And don't just put up a graph or a map and not say anything about it. With pictures, sometimes you don't need to say anything about it. But with a graph, your audience is going to be trying to figure out the meaning of that graph. So you should be gesturing to it. You should be explaining what's the important things. Why is it relevant enough that it's taking up a whole slide? If it's not relevant enough to take up a whole slide, then it's not relevant enough to refer to. You should just revert to the data. So again, if it's a graph or a map, take up the whole slide, and you should be gesturing to it. You should be explaining why it's important. All of the previous things are to enhance the presentation and not distract. Clip art's not as much of a big deal anymore, but I hesitate not to include it because it's just really juvenile and immature. So today we've talked about how to use PowerPoint in a presentation to enhance and not distract by talking about what your body should be doing. We talked about what to put on those slides and how to format pictures and how to choose what pictures to include. So I hope that now it's really easy to have a presentation that utilizes a visual aid and not have a PowerPoint presentation or a Prezi presentation or a poster presentation. You are the presenter. Make sure that you are the focus. You can do it, guys.